Hello, and welcome back to NWEA Basics for Teachers. I'm Jean Potter. I'm from the teaching and learning staff of the Oklahoma Public School Resource Center, who is sponsoring this. I want to welcome you back. We're going to be talking specifically about NWEA's Achievement Status and Growth Summary with Quadrant Chart report. We talked about the Quadrant Chart itself in the last lesson. So we're going to be looking more specifically at the table that is below that. And as we saw in the last lesson, we can check or uncheck the different subjects shown so that I can show more subjects or less subjects on the quadrant chart. I can also show only female on the quadrant chart. And this translates not only to the chart, but it also translates to the table below that. So I'm going to leave it with both male and female shown. I'm going to move down to this table that's below, and it also is interactive, so it's a really nice way to be able to look at things. I'm going to be looking at the information that we've got that is given, and right now I've got it sorted by student name, which is what it comes up with as a default, so it's in alpha order by the student's last name, but it also shows the quadrant that the students are in. So if I compare it, we can see that Jennifer's up here in this orange quadrant, which is the low achievement but high growth. It shows what grade she was in when she took the fall assessment. In fact, the last assessment shows the date of the last assessment. Then it shows both the fall 16 and fall 17 assessments, so I'm comparing scores for those two assessments. Shows the projected RIT based mathematically on what Jennifer scored in fall of 2016. NWEA can project out a possible RIT based on her score and assuming the same sort of growth over time of the length of time. And as you'll notice, we're talking about a full year of growth. It also shows the observed growth, a standard error for the observed growth. There's a growth index, which is a mathematical analysis of this growth. It tells whether they met or did not meet the projected growth. And then there are some comparative features over here we're not going to look at, but the conditional growth index and the conditional growth percentile will allow you to compare student to student growth, even though they don't have exactly the same scores going in, or students' growth in class to show that. Because as you'll notice in some of the other reports, the higher the RIT range, the lower expected growth is often expected to occur because growth tends to slow. So the conditional growth index and percentiles will allow us to compare those, even though they're not at the same level to start out with. But let's look at some of the interactivity. If I click on the quadrant up here at the top, it will show me all of the students in each of the quadrants. And so I can begin to look at these three students. These are students that I really want to be able to concentrate on. They're showing low achievement and low growth. I can go back to sort by name. I can click on the RIT range and sort by RIT range in any of those. I can sort by projected growth, which is pretty impressive because I can begin to look at projected growth, and I can see that for this class, all of the students are expected to grow between 5 and 6 points. However, if I go over and look at some of the growth that's occurring, it may be quite different than that. So let's look at Jennifer. Jennifer scored a 211 in the fall of 16. She scored a score of 220 in the fall of 17, so she grew a total of 9 points. NWEA projected that she would grow about 5 points based on her scores. The average student would only grow 5 points. So Jennifer grew almost twice as much as expected. If I look down at another student, Victor here is quite impressive. Victor grew from 208 up to 256. If I look at the percentile, he went from a 19th percentile to a 95th percentile. He grew a total of 48 points, which is an amazing amount of growth. And so something to be celebrated, but also something to look at and see what was happening correctly. Was it remediation? Was it just a bad test taking day on the first ones? But a good thing to be looking at, and I can look at this specifically by sorting by observed growth. So if I sort by observed growth, Victor's all the way down here at the bottom. There were 2 students in the class that grew far more than expected, and several students that grew about 2 or 3 times as much as expected. So some impressive growth there, something to celebrate, but also to find out, see if we can analyze the reasons why. But looking at the top here, because I've got it sorted by the amount of growth, I can see that I have 5 students that I might be very concerned about because they're not only showing did not meet the growth, but they're all even going backwards. So lots of information in this particular report, and being able to move the report around and to sort by the different columns really makes a great way to look at how your class is doing. Going to move this back to sorted by name again, so it's back the way it was. Again, this is the last part, or the bottom part, after the quadrant chart. So it's the achievement status and growth summary with quadrant chart report, and it's the interactive feature at the bottom. Thank you for joining me.